I'll take a yellow sip, cause I'm tryna have a better day. Ain't gonna get delirious, just sit here by the bay. Might take a bigger sip.
Hey, what's up guys, it's Kale here. I'm a surfer and a filmmaker, and today I'm gonna answer everything there is to know about surfing. Well, almost. I'm gonna start off with some more technique stuff, then there are some questions that people have asked about me. You can skip that if you want, and then we'll jump back into some technique stuff after that. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and join me on Instagram at Kale's Broccoli. Let's jump into it. First question, am I too old to start surfing, or am I too old to get good at surfing? No, absolutely not. I don't think there's an age limit when it comes to starting surfing or progressing in surfing. Obviously, there are going to be certain barriers in place physiologically when you start, but that's the case for a lot of people. I work with a lot of young beginners who can barely paddle for longer than 20 minutes because the musculature just isn't there. The same might be said as you get older, you might be a little bit less flexible, less limber, and thus a little bit less likely to perform at a really high level. Overall, I think that it has very little influence over your progression. That really comes down to some good advice, some good guidance, and spending a lot of time in the water. Perfect if you're retired. Question number 2, what is the fastest hack / technique / piece of advice to get people to improve quickly? This is a huge one I get asked all the time, and I think it's impossible to go past spending as much time in the water as possible. What that will do is actually naturally teach you how to read waves, which is a massive component of surfing. It's not just about paddling and popping up and doing your thing. It's about reading the ocean, making sure you're in the right spot, and then being able to paddle into that position and catch the wave. I think paddling is such an underemphasized and underappreciated component of the entire surfing equation. It tends to get shoved to the side behind the cool stuff like standing up and flowing and riding the nose and doing cutbacks and all the rest of it. I think something that we could all do to improve quickly is work on our paddling and our wave knowledge, and that means just spending as much time in the water as possible with and without a board. That sort of brings me to our next question, paddle power exercises, especially last minute bursts. / should I kick and paddle or just paddle? I think paddling exercises, the best thing you can do is be in the ocean and get some guidance on good technique. I've done a few videos on this channel about paddling, and I've also got some good exercises. So what you can actually do is roll over a Swiss ball and then arch up and be arching from the middle back. So your middle back should be really turned on. Your shoulder blades should feel as if you're actually shrugging them down and together. And what we're going to do is create a Y, a T, and a W with our arms, and we can increase the intensity of that by holding some really light weights. That's a really good exercise to strengthen the back muscles associated with an effective paddling technique. Don't forget also that you have to activate the glutes and the legs as well. You can, for that last second before you catch a wave, you can actually break that technique and lean forward and create more of a striking cobra sort of pose, and give a few kicks of the legs just to increase the chance and the likelihood of you matching the wave's momentum or just catching the wave. What's the best way to practice popping up on land? I don't think you can actually properly mimic what's required on your surfboard in the ocean on land. Too many people practice popping up on land and end up doing this like really rapid burpee style pop-up. That's not going to be the case out in the water because the boards just aren't that stable. You're on a moving surface. Often you're on a smaller board. There's just not that much room for your knees and your feet to get too involved. We actually slide up. We sort of do like a downward dog style movement where our hips rise and our feet slide into position, filling the negative space that is created as we let our board drop down the wave and whilst holding ourselves up in a prone position. That's the way the best surfers in the world do it. So I think on that, just by doing some yoga exercises like downward dog, moving to like your sort of slow controlled mountain climbers and things like that, that really helps with pop-up practice. Next one, how can I improve my balance and surf stance on land? Anything that's like sort of single leg oriented. So you can do some like single leg squats. If you don't want to move the leg entirely out of the equation, you can sort of wrap it over a Swiss ball or something like that. Anything that helps you sort of maintain control from the core outwards on a moving or unstable kind of surface. How long before I should change to a shorter board? So a lot of people start off surfing on a longer board, which makes total sense. They're more stable, you're more likely to catch waves and whatnot, but they are limited in the fact that it's a little bit trickier to get out the back and get into position for some waves, and they're harder to turn because they're bigger. Now, if we want to downscale to a short board like that, all we have to do is reach a point where we feel like the longboard is inhibiting us from doing the surfing that we want to do. If you love longboarding, keep doing it. That's totally fine. But if you want to start doing big maneuvers and roundhouse cutbacks and all that sort of stuff, unless you're a pro longboarder, it's probably going to be out of your range unless you move to a smaller board. So the moment you feel as if your longboard is hindering you, that's when I would encourage someone to start experimenting with a smaller board, and do it in small segments if you can. Don't go from an 8'9" to a 5'6". If you're on an 8'9", maybe drop back to a 7'6" big fish. Got a lot of buoyancy and a lot of foam. And then after that, you can drop back to your 6'6". Whatever's going to work for you, just try and do it in a sliding sort of scale. Okay, some questions about me. I sort of didn't know if I was going to include this or not, but I know that I follow some people who I like to hear about. So this is it. You can skip ahead a couple of minutes if this is boring. Which sunscreen do you use, or which zinc do you use? Everyone's always asking, like, what's on your face? Because I'm like constantly lathered up with, thick zinc. I just find that sunscreen doesn't stay on well enough on my face because I'm always sort of rubbing my face. I like to protect my face from getting sunburn. Healthy vitamin D and sun exposure is really important, but I don't like getting burnt because that is dangerous. So I've just started using sun butter, which is a plant-based, chemical-free, comes in a recyclable tin. They donate 1% to the planet. Really ethical, sustainable company that I'm really happy to jump on board with. I'm happy to become an ambassador for them. So you guys can actually save 15% on your sun butter products if you use the discount code broccoli on their website. I'll put a link down below for it, or you can just head to their website online. Which surf skate trainers do you use? I don't know why I lined all these questions like product related. Anyway, I use the Smooth Star surf trainers. I think they're by far the best on the market. They just mimic surfing so well. I really don't think there's another skateboard that matches surfing's required movements so closely on land. They have this like swivel truck at the front, which means you can really only get them moving by rotating and twisting the body, which is how you generate speed and do turns in the surf. Anyone that I coach, generally I'll get them to, in the car park before we go out surfing, or in between or whatever, I'll get them to practice what they're working on the Smooth Star, because it does have such a strong carryover into their surf. I'll put a link down below for those. Have I surfed in Europe / anywhere else? Yeah, I've pretty much surfed all over the world. Europe, in Portugal, Spain, France. France is my love. J'aime les Français. I want to go there and stay for a while and really spend a lot of time there. I've surfed throughout America. I did El Salvador. I went to Sri Lanka, all throughout Indonesia. Obviously, being from Australia, I've been incredibly blessed to be able to surf in so many different places, and I plan on surfing in so many more in the years to come. Best waves I've ever surfed? It's always a hard question because it's always like your most recent really good surf. When I was in Trestles shooting my film recently, I spent a few days just taking a break down in San Clemente in California, and I had Trestles absolutely pumping, and that's probably my last really good surf. In terms of like standout waves, best barrel of my life by far was at Kira on a pumping south swell. It's a full stand-up tube for like 10 seconds. It felt like 10 seconds. Best wave of my life. I've also had some real crackers back home in South Australia and also in Western Australia too. At North Point, I had a stand-up tube that was short, but probably one of the best. Didn't catch them on camera though, so did it really happen? Who's influenced my surfing the most? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I say this, I'm going to be compared to these people, and if I'm compared to these people, I'm going to fall so short, embarrassingly inept. But who cares? I'm going to say it anyway. Dane Reynolds is by far my favorite surfer in the entire world. Kelly Slater is both a surfer and a human being. I'm just such an admirer and a big fan of. But if we had to nail it down, I would say Dane Reynolds is my favorite surfer by far. Kelly Slater, my favorite surfer / human being. Is Steph Gilmore. Rip, she shreds. Big fan of her too. What is the best thing about surfing? I love this question, and I'm going to be delving into it a lot more in the future with some exciting new projects, which are still in the seedling stages, I should say. Flow state. It's that feeling of total dissolution of ego and the external world. You are right here, or I should actually say back here, because your prefrontal cortex shuts off during flow state. But that is the best thing for me, where you do the turn that you've been trying all session, or you do an air that you've been trying all session, or you do what you get that tube you've been chasing the entire session. The adrenaline mixed in with the colors of the water and the shimmering sunshine. So all those elements blended together into this really deeply present, probably esoteric sounding moment. That is the point at which I go, there is nothing else I would rather be doing than being right here, spit out of this barrel, landing this air, or whatever it is. I mean, that's the thing that we're all chasing. I mean, Billabong capitalized on that. Only a surfer knows the feeling. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then man, you need more of this in your life. Okay, back to technique stuff for a little bit. How do you get over the fear of bigger waves? Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something quite relevant for me. When I first got into the health and well-being space, I was 16, I was diagnosed with a heart condition, supraventricular tachycardia. I can count on one hand the moments I've experienced with the tachycardia in the ocean, and a lot of those revolve around bigger waves. So after being held down for a long time, or just being smashed to pieces by bigger waves, sometimes my heart does go back into its tachycardia, so the arrhythmia. So I have a particular sort of hesitation in waves that are beyond what I'm used to, but I think the main thing is to acknowledge the fear, but also just have your anchors in place to bring you back to the moment, because most of the time we're going to be fine. Now, I think it's smart to be sensible, obviously, and I've certainly pushed my boundaries because I surf with my brother and his friends, and you know, my brother's a bit of a psycho. He'll charge anything because I think he's just a bit stupid. No, I'm kidding. He's a lot more brave than I am. So, you know, being surrounded by people like that naturally pushes me, and because they are comfortable in those situations, it makes me feel comfortable. So surrounding yourself with the right people during those moments where you're pushing yourself is a really good idea. And then it's just coming back to the breath and coming back to your technique. As you know, many coaches will say, during those times of high stress or high anxiety, we fall back to our base level of training. So the more we have some really good fundamentals in place with our surf technique, the better off we'll be. Everything moves faster when it's bigger. So you have to paddle faster, you have to take off faster. If you remember that, then you're going to be fine. Commitment is such a big thing as well. If you're half-assed paddling into waves that are bigger than you want, you're probably going to get smashed and sent in. You're much better off committing and falling off at the bottom of the wave as opposed to falling off at the top. No, I don't surf huge waves. Maybe the biggest waves I've surfed is 6 foot probably, and we measure from the back here in Australia, so 6 foot Hawaii. I don't know what that is from the front. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a charger by any means. How to tell which waves will be good. I mean, this comes down to, and I've done videos on this on the channel, which you can check out. This comes down to you spending as much time in the water as possible to be able to pick up the cues that are necessary to identify good waves. And that generally comes down to changes in texture and color of the waves as they come in. So you're looking for these steep gradients. I mean, the best wave that you're ever going to see is like trestles, right? You see this peak coming in that breaks left and right. Perfect. It's not often that we see that sort of quality of wave. So being able to identify workable options in your given area is a skill. And like any skill, it takes time to develop. So again, the key here is time. Foot movement on a surfboard for different maneuvers. I've spoken about this a lot. Don't focus on that. Focus more on what your eyes are doing, what your shoulders are doing, and then that'll naturally flow into the feet. It's very rare that I have to think about what my feet are doing during a session. I much rather have my beginner and intermediate clients think about where their eyes are looking and what their shoulders and leading hand is doing, because those are far stronger predictors of what happens on a wave than what your feet are doing. Naturally, the feet are going to change. You're doing an air reverse, weight distribution is going to change. You're doing a carve compared to a re-entry, your weight distribution is going to be different. There's no point talking about that if you're not focusing on the technique up here in the upper torso as well. Doesn't matter which fin setup you use. Well, these two boards over here, I've got a twin fin at the back and a thruster at the front, which means a twin fin, obviously 2 fins. The thruster is a 3 fin setup. I haven't used quads very much. I don't like the feel of them. I find them too squirty, too intense. overall I just can't work out a quad setup, sort of like this sentence. So I think it does have a big influence on how you surf. I mean, I took a twin fin out this morning and, you know, it was a beautiful session. It's a wider board. It's, you know, meant for smaller waves and it worked a lot better than a thruster would have. However, if the surf was double the size, that's when I want to be on my thruster. I want to be able to release the fins if I want to. I want to be able to do airs when I want to. And I just find the quads don't really work that way. Basically, the smaller the fin, the more loose your board will be. The bigger the fin, you'll have more traction on the wave and the harder it'll be to loose the tail. And that generally comes down to your body weight and how advanced you are. I just go for something really simple and I get mediums everywhere I go. In that board right there, I have Future fins. I have the John Florence range. In my other boards, I have the FCS2 plugs and I use those. I use the Performers. Both are medium size because I'm 80 kilos and I'm not too short and I'm also definitely not tall. That, my friends, is it for this Q&A. I hope it was helpful. I mean, it's a weird time in the world right now, so I'm doing a lot of filming at home. I'm still surfing, you know, on my own and doing that sort of stuff. So I would love to hear from you right now. What other burning questions you have about surfing? If I didn't answer them today, put them in the comments below, whilst you also hit the like button and the subscribe button, which is just down there. And also join me on Instagram at Kale Brock. I feel like I've got too many calls to action at the end of these videos. But regardless, I would love to connect with you. So please reach out here or on Instagram and I will chat to you soon. I really hope this helped you. I look forward to a massive year ahead of great surf and self-isolation. I'll chat to you soon.
Okay, I'll feel better anyway. Forgot about my problems, but how am I